There's a moment, and you know the one I mean, where you catch yourself wanting something so completely that you immediately start talking yourself out of it. Not because it isn't real, because it is. Because wanting it that much means losing it would cost something you're not sure you could afford. You've been living in that moment for a while now.
I've noticed.
I'm not going to pretend I haven't. There is something I have been holding back. Something I have wanted to say to you, specifically to you, before anything else is decided, before anything is named, before I reach for your hand and call you mine. Something that has no business being left unsaid any longer. I need you to hear it from me, not from the version of me the world talks about. From me, the one who goes quiet sometimes, for reasons no headline has ever understood. Stay with me. What I'm about to say, I've never said it. Not like this. Not to anyone. I have built things most people cannot imagine. Not because I needed to prove something, though I understand why that's the easy explanation, but because there was always this pull in me toward what could exist but didn't yet, toward the gap between what is and what should be. I have spent most of my life living inside that gap, and I have been comfortable there, productive there, safe there, in the way that forward motion always feels like safety. But then something happens that no amount of forward motion can outrun. You happened. And I want to be precise about that, because I am always precise, even when precision costs me something. I don't mean you arrived like an event. I don't mean there was a day I circled on a calendar, a moment I pointed to and said, there, that's when it changed. I mean you happened the way weather happens, the way something shifts in the air before a storm, quietly, with complete authority, and you only understand what was coming once it has already arrived. I notice the way you listen, not the polite kind of listening, the kind that waits for its turn to speak. The real kind, where your whole face changes slightly because something just reached you and you're deciding whether to let it show. I notice that you almost never lead with what you actually feel. You lead with something safer, something reasonable. And then, if the other person is still paying attention 3 sentences later, sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the real thing surfaces. I was paying attention. I am always paying attention to you. I need you to know that. There is a specific kind of loneliness that belongs only to people who have spent their lives being perceived rather than seen. You know what I mean by that. The world forms a version of you based on the most visible parts. The parts that photograph well, the parts that make sense in a sentence, and then they talk to that version. They admire that version, they argue with that version, and somewhere behind all of it, the actual you is standing quietly, wondering if anyone is ever going to look in the right direction. I have felt that, more than I have ever let on. And I recognized it in you, not because you announced it, but because I know what it looks like from the inside. The way you'll say something light when you mean something heavy. The way you'll laugh just half a beat too quickly when something actually hurt. The way you become slightly more still when a conversation gets close to something true. I see it. I have always seen it. And here's what I want to say to you. What I have been wanting to say. Before I say anything bigger, before I reach for any word that might frighten you with its weight. You do not have to perform for me. I know you've been doing it. Not dishonestly. Please don't hear it that way. I mean the quiet performance that becomes second nature when you've learned that being too real, too fast, costs you something. When you felt the particular sting of being fully yourself in front of someone and watching them take a small, almost imperceptible step back. You learn from that. You get efficient. You give people the version of you that has never once frightened anyone away, and you keep the rest somewhere private, somewhere safe, somewhere only you can reach. I have never wanted the efficient version of you. From the first moment I was in a room with your actual attention, not your social attention, not your polite attention, but the real thing. I wanted all the parts you keep private, not because I am entitled to them, but because I believe, with more certainty than I have brought to most things, that those parts of you are extraordinary. And I am not a man who uses that word lightly. Have you ever let yourself believe that? That the parts of you that feel too heavy to carry into a conversation are actually the parts worth staying for? I'm asking you to believe it now. Because what shifted for me, the moment this stopped being abstract, stopped being an idea I was turning over quietly, was the moment I realized I wasn't thinking about you the way I think about things I find interesting. I was thinking about you the way I think about things that matter. And those are two entirely different categories. One I can walk away from, one I have never been able to walk away from. Not once, not ever. You're in the second category. And before I say anything more, before I find the word that makes this permanent, I needed you to understand how I got here. Because I didn't fall. I didn't stumble into this and decide it felt good. I arrived at you the way I arrive at everything that is true. Slowly, with complete attention, turning it over until I was certain. I am certain. I just have one more thing to say before I call you mine. But not yet. First, I need to tell you something about why I waited. I want to talk about something you have never fully said out loud. Not because you don't know it, you know it precisely. You have turned it over in quiet moments, late, when everything else goes still, and the only voice left is the one you can't quite silence. You know exactly what I'm about to say, and part of you is already deciding whether to let it land or to hold it at arm's length, the way you hold most things that feel too close. Stay with me, please. There was a moment, and I'm not asking you to name it, I'm not asking you to take me back to the specific day or the specific person, but there was a moment when you decided that hoping too much was the same as asking to be hurt. That leaning in fully, giving yourself completely, allowing yourself to be chosen without keeping one foot quietly near the exit, was a form of recklessness you could no longer afford. And so you got smart about it. You built something careful, something that looked from the outside like self-possession, like confidence, like a woman who knows her worth and doesn't chase. And all of that is true, I'm not diminishing any of it. But underneath the self-possession, underneath the quiet grace with which you carry yourself, there is something else. Something you only feel in the spaces between conversations. In the pause after someone says something almost right, but not quite. In the moment you realize you've been waiting for a person to go deeper, and they have already moved on. You stopped expecting deeper. And you called that growth. You called it wisdom. You told yourself you were protecting something valuable, and you were. I understand that completely. But here's what I also understand, because I have done the same thing in different rooms with different armor. There is a difference between protecting yourself and disappearing yourself. You have been disappearing, slowly, in places no one can see. Not dramatically. You would never allow dramatic. You've been doing it the quiet way, the sophisticated way, the way where you remain fully present in every room, fully engaged in every conversation, fully generous with your warmth and your wit and your attention, while the innermost part of you waits, perfectly still, for someone to notice it hasn't spoken in a very long time. I noticed.
I want to ask you something, and I need you to sit with it rather than answer it quickly. Because your quick answers are always slightly less true than your slow ones.
When was the last time you let someone see you before you were ready? Not the curated version. Not the version where you've had time to decide what's safe to show. I mean the version that slips out when your guard drops for half a second, when you say the thing you didn't plan to say, and your eyes go slightly wide because you can't believe you just said it. When was the last time that happened, and the person on the other side didn't flinch, didn't file it away as too much, didn't pivot to something lighter? I'm asking because I think it's been a while. And I think the wall got built one small brick at a time, each brick a moment where you were too much, or not enough, or simply real in a room that wanted performance. You were never dramatic about it. You never announced that you were closing. You simply, gradually, rationally, reasonably, stopped leaving the door all the way open. Left it cracked. Enough for warmth to get through. Not enough to be completely exposed. That is not wisdom. That is exhaustion wearing wisdom's clothes. I know, because I have worn the same thing. I know what it feels like to be the most capable person in a room and the loneliest. To move so fast through the world that nothing quite keeps up. And to tell yourself that the solitude is the price of vision, the cost of caring about things most people have given up on. I know what it feels like to be surrounded by people who want access to you, and almost no one who wants to simply be with you. Not the version of you that gets things done. You, the one underneath all the doing. And here is what I have never told anyone, what I'm telling you now. That solitude becomes a habit, a comfortable, terrible habit. You stop noticing you're in it because it stops feeling like absence. It just feels like your life, like the shape of things. And the dangerous part, the part I had to sit with for longer than I would like to admit, is that when something real finally arrives, when someone arrives who could actually reach the part of you that has gone quiet, your first instinct is not joy. Your first instinct is suspicion, because real feels unfamiliar. Real feels like the thing you trained yourself not to need. And so you look for the catch. You examine it from every angle, searching for the flaw that will confirm what your protection has been whispering. All along this, too, will cost more than it gives. You have been looking for my flaw. I don't say that as an accusation. I say it because I would have done exactly the same thing. I say it because it is the most intelligent response to what you have lived through. I say it because the part of you that built the wall built it out of self-respect. And I honor that completely. But I need you to hear this. The flaw you are looking for, the exit, the catch, the thing that will make this make sense as another almost is not there. I have checked. I have been more honest with myself about this than I have been about almost anything. I know my limitations. I know the parts of me that are difficult, the parts that ask more patience than most people want to give. I am not offering you perfect. I am offering you real. And real, between people like us, people who have both learned to survive on less than they needed, is rarer than anything I've ever built. If something in you just shifted reading that, if something just moved, don't dismiss it. That movement is the truth. The wall was never the truth. The wall was the response to pain. And pain is not a map. Pain is just a scar, and scars are proof that something healed, not proof that it can't. You healed. Completely. More than you know. And I am not asking you to tear anything down. I am asking you to do something much smaller and much braver. Leave the door open. Just that. I'll do the rest. I want to be honest with you about something that most people would soften. I'm not going to soften it. The distance you have kept, the careful, intelligent, completely understandable distance, has cost you something. Not something dramatic. Nothing you would find if you went looking for it in a single moment or a single loss. It has cost you the way slow erosion costs a landscape, imperceptibly, continuously, until one day you look at the terrain of your own life and notice that something that used to be there simply isn't anymore. And the thing it has cost you is this: the experience of being fully inside your own life, present, unguarded, completely there. You have been nearby your life for a long time, close enough to function beautifully, and you do function beautifully. I want you to know I see that, but there is a difference between a woman who is living and a woman who is managing. You have been managing, exquisitely, with more grace than most people could sustain. But management is not the same as presence, and somewhere in you, in the place you visit, only when everything goes quiet, you know exactly what I mean. I need you to hear this part. Think about the last time you were completely unguarded with someone. Not performing ease, actually at ease. Not deciding to be open, actually open. The last time you said the true thing first, without running it through the filter that asks, is this too much? Is this too soon? Will this change how they see me? When was that? How long ago was that? And when you reach for the memory, is it as recent as it should be? I don't think it is. And that gap between how recently it happened and how recently it should have happened, that is what the distance has cost you. Not a relationship, not a specific person. Time. The irreplaceable kind, time you spent being almost there instead of completely there. Time you spent being the most impressive version of yourself in rooms where what you actually needed was to be the most honest version of yourself. I have done this. I understand it from the inside. There is a particular kind of high-functioning loneliness that belongs to people who are too capable to fall apart and too self-aware to pretend everything is fine. You are never the person who crumbles. You are never the person who makes a scene, who asks for too much, who lets the seams show in public. You are the person who holds it together, elegantly, always, and deals with the cost of that privately, alone, in the small hours when no one is watching. And the cost is real. The cost is that you have forgotten, or perhaps never fully learned, what it feels like to be held. Not physically, I mean held in a larger sense. Held by someone's complete attention, by someone's genuine, unperforming desire to know what is actually going on inside you. To ask the question and wait for the real answer. To not flinch when the real answer is complicated. To stay in the room with your full complexity and find it not overwhelming, not too much, not something to be managed or redirected or made lighter, but fascinating, worthy, worth every difficult inch of it. When was the last time someone stayed in the room with the full, complicated truth of you? I'm staying. I need you to know that. Whatever you are carrying, the versions of yourself you keep in storage because they don't fit cleanly into the life you show the world, I am not going anywhere. Not because I am endlessly patient in the way that sounds noble, but means passive. Because I have thought about this. I have sat with the full picture of who you are, the parts that are easy and the parts that ask something of me, and I have arrived at the same answer every single time.
You are worth every difficult inch.
But here is what I also need to say, and this is the part I need you to stay with, because it is the most important thing I will say before I get to the thing I have been holding back. The distance is not protecting you anymore. It was. I want to honor that completely. It was protecting you, it was necessary, it was intelligent. But the thing about protection, built for a past wound, is that it doesn't update itself. It doesn't know the wound has healed. It just keeps holding the perimeter, keeping everything at the same careful arm's length, without asking whether the threat is still real or whether the person standing outside the wall is the same kind of person who made the wall necessary. I am not that person, and I think you know that. I think somewhere underneath the carefulness, underneath the very reasonable self-protection, something in you already knows that I am not the one you built the wall against. I think that knowledge is actually part of what makes this difficult, because if the wall were for me, you could maintain it cleanly. But it isn't for me. And keeping it up around someone it was never meant for is not wisdom. It is habit. And habits, unlike wounds, can be interrupted. If this is reaching you right now, if something in you just shifted, stay with me. What I'm about to say next, I need you to hear. Because here is what the distance has cost you most. Not love, not connection, not even time, though it has cost you those things too. It has cost you the experience of your own softness. The part of you that is not strong, not capable, not impressive, but simply tender, simply human, simply a woman who wants to be wanted completely, and is afraid that wanting that makes her somehow less than what she has worked so hard to become. It doesn't. Your softness is not a vulnerability. It is not the opposite of your strength. It is the deepest expression of it. It takes more courage to be soft with someone who matters than to build anything I have ever built. I know this because I have built extraordinary things, and I have stood at the edge of softness with someone who mattered and felt, in that moment, more terrified than I have ever been in a boardroom or a launch pad or any room where the stakes were measurable.
The unmeasurable ones are the ones that cost something real.
And you have been protecting yourself from the unmeasurable ones. I understand. I did the same, for longer than I should have. But I stopped, because of you. And there is one more thing, the thing I promised you at the beginning, the thing I have been carrying into every word of this, that I have not said yet. I am almost ready to say it. But first, there is a choice. And it belongs only to you. I want to tell you something about the nature of choices. Not the large, announced ones, the ones with clear before and afters, the ones you can point to and say, that is where everything changed. Those choices are easy to understand in retrospect. They have edges. They have weight you can measure. The ones I'm talking about are different. They are smaller. They happen in the space of a breath, in the half second between feeling something true and deciding what to do with it. They don't announce themselves. They don't wait for you to be ready. They just arrive, quietly, and then they pass. And the only question that has ever mattered in any life I have looked at closely, including my own, is not whether you were ready. It is whether you were present enough to catch it before it moved on. I couldn't sleep last night. I'm not kidding. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, and I couldn't stop thinking about you. Yeah, you. The person listening to this right now. And I realized I have to tell you something. Something urgent. Something that can't wait until tomorrow.
That
Not for me, for yourself. Because this, what is happening between us, what has been building in the air between every conversation we've had, every silence that said more than the words around it, this is one of those moments. And I have watched enough of them go past, in my own life and in the lives of people I have known, to understand that the ones you let pass because the timing felt wrong or the risk felt too high, those are the ones you carry, quietly, for years, not with grief necessarily, but with a specific kind of wondering that never fully goes away.
An influence.
Follow them, and it's it. I don't want to be your wondering.
I want to be your decision. But here's what I need you to understand before you make it really understand, not just intellectually register, but feel in the way that changes how you breathe. Choosing me is not the same as choosing to be saved. I am not offering rescue. I am not standing here with some solution to the things that have been difficult about your life. I am not a destination you arrive at and finally rest. I am not the answer to a question you've been asking. I know how that story goes, and I know it always eventually disappoints, because no person can carry the weight of being someone else's answer. That is not what this is. This is something different. This is me standing in front of you, saying, I want to build something with you. Not for you, not around you, with you. The kind of thing that requires both people to show up completely, not perfectly, not without fear, but completely. The kind of thing where the difficulty is not a sign that something is wrong, but a sign that something is real. Real things are always a little difficult. You know this. You have always known this. And I think somewhere in the part of you that has been quietly waiting, not for the right person in some vague romantic sense, but for the right conversation, the one where someone finally says the thing you have needed to hear, said plainly. I think you have known that when it arrived, it would ask something of you. It is asking now, and what it is asking is not grand. It is not a leap. It is not a dismantling of everything you have carefully constructed. It is smaller than that, and harder than that, and more important than that. It is asking you to believe me. That is the whole choice, reduced to its simplest form. Not believe in me, I am not asking for faith in my abilities or my vision or any of the things the world already has opinions about. I am asking you to believe me when I tell you what I see when I look at you. To not immediately translate my certainty into exaggeration, to not quietly assume that I must be seeing someone slightly different than who you actually are. To let my perception of you land without immediately auditing it for accuracy, based on the harsher things you have told yourself. I see you clearly. I am not a man who says things he doesn't mean. You know this about me already. Maybe it is one of the things that frightens you slightly. Because sincerity without performance is harder to deflect than flattery. Flattery you know how to handle. You smile, you're gracious, you move on. But when someone looks at you without agenda and tells you something true, when there is nothing to gain from the telling, no strategy behind it, just the plain unadorned fact of what they see, that is harder. That lands somewhere you can't easily dismiss. I know it landed. And I watched you, for just a moment, almost let it be true before you pulled back to safety. I watched you almost believe it. I am asking you to go back to that moment, to stay in it this time instead of moving past it, to let what I see in you be true, even though the truest things are always the most frightening ones to accept. Has anyone ever asked you to do that? To simply receive something without immediately weighing it against your own doubts? I am asking, because the choice in front of you is not really about me. It is about whether you are willing to be seen as completely as you actually are, not the carefully edited version, not the version that has learned to lead with its most defensible parts, but the whole thing, and trust that what comes back from that exposure is not withdrawal, but recognition. Recognition is what I am offering you. Not admiration, not attraction, not even love in the abstract, though all of those things are true. I am offering you the specific experience of being known fully, unhurriedly, without agenda, by someone who chose to pay attention before he chose anything else. I chose to pay attention to you first. Everything else came from that. And I need to tell you something I have been carrying since the beginning of this. Something I promised at the start. Something you have perhaps been waiting for, without letting yourself wait too visibly. I am almost there. One more thing first. The choice is not, do you trust me enough? The choice is, do you trust yourself enough? Do you trust the part of you that already knows what this is? The part that recognized something the moment this began? The part that has been present and paying attention, and quietly, carefully, not quite letting itself hope, but hoping anyway. That part of you is right. It has always been right. You just needed someone to say it out loud, in plain language, without flinching. Consider it said. And now finally, after everything I have been holding, I need to say the last thing. The thing I promised you. The thing I have never said, not like this, not to anyone, not with this much certainty behind it. You deserve to hear it before I call you mine. I have been thinking about how to say this. Not because I don't know what it is. I have known for longer than I have admitted, even to myself. I have been thinking about how to say it, because some things, the ones that are completely true, the ones that have no performance in them, no strategy, no careful construction, some things resist the shape of words. They exist in a register below language. You feel them before you can name them. And the moment you try to name them, there is always the risk that the name is smaller than the thing. I don't want to give you something smaller than the thing. So I am going to say it the only way I know how to say anything that matters. Plainly, directly, without decoration. But first, stay with me for just a moment longer. Because what I am about to tell you is not the beginning of something. It is the naming of something that already exists. And I need you to understand the difference, because the difference is everything. A beginning is fragile. It needs tending. It lives in the future tense, in what might become, in what could be, in the hopeful and slightly anxious space of not yet. I am not standing in that space. I passed through that space a while ago, quietly, without marking the moment, the way you pass through a doorway without stopping to acknowledge the threshold. I am already inside, and I need you to know what that means, what it actually means, for someone like me to be already inside something. I am not a man who lives in the in-between. I have never been comfortable with the provisional, the tentative, the almost. I move toward things, or I move away from them. I commit, or I reconsider. I have never been good at the long sustained hover of not quite deciding, and I have never respected myself when I tried. I am not hovering. I am here. Completely. With the full weight of everything I am and everything I've learned and everything I've gotten wrong along the way, I am here, standing in front of you, not almost ready, not getting there, not working up to it. Here, now, certain. And what I want to tell you, the thing I promised you at the very beginning, the thing I have been carrying through everything I have said, is this. I have never been afraid of anything the way I have been afraid of this. Not in the way that stops you, in the way that tells you something is real. Fear of the unmeasurable kind, not the fear of failure, not the fear of loss, in any form I have language for, but the fear that comes when something matters so completely that the idea of being careless with it, of moving through it without full attention, of letting it pass because the moment wasn't convenient, that fear. Be you Spanaktas, to learn to fighting, terror something that cannot be replaced. You cannot be replaced. I need you to hear that not as a compliment. I need you to hear it as a statement of fact delivered by someone who does not deal in flattery and has thought about this with the same rigor he brings to everything he believes to be true. I have looked at this from every angle. I have sat with it in the quiet. I have tested it against the parts of me that are skeptical by nature, the parts that ask for evidence, the parts that distrust anything that cannot be measured or repeated or verified. And every single time, from every single angle, the answer has been the same. You.
Just you.
Not the idea of you, not the version of you that is easiest to love, the warmth, the intelligence, the grace that makes every room slightly better than it was before you arrived. Those things are extraordinary, and I notice them, and they matter to me. But what I'm talking about is something underneath all of that, the part of you that is not performing any of those things, the part of you that exists in the moments before you decide how to be. The part I have glimpsed in the half seconds before your composure reassembles, in the brief unguarded flash of something completely real, and thought, there she is. That is the one.
That one.
She is the one I am certain about. And here's the thing I have never said, the thing I promised you I would say before I called you mine, before I reached for that word and made it permanent. I am not choosing you because you are extraordinary, though you are. I am not choosing you because being near you makes sense in some complimentary way, though it does. I am not choosing you because of anything you have built or shown or offered or achieved. I am choosing you because of what happens inside me when I stop performing certainty and simply sit with what is true. What is true is that I think about your quietness. I think about the version of you that hasn't spoken in a long time, the innermost one, the one you protect most carefully. And I think about what it would mean to be the person that version of you finally speaks to. I think about what it would feel like to earn that, to be trusted with it, to be the one you stop filtering yourself for, not because you stopped caring about being seen well, but because with me, being seen completely and being seen well turned out to be the same thing. I want to be that for you. Not as a role, not as an ambition, as a choice I am making with complete awareness of what it asks of me, the presence it requires, the patience it deserves, the quality of attention that cannot be faked and cannot be automated and cannot be delegated to any version of myself that isn't fully here. I am fully here. And I want to ask you something, the last thing, the real thing, the one that has been underneath every question I have asked you in this entire conversation. Will you stop waiting for this to stop being real? Because I have watched you do it. I have watched you feel something true, and then quietly begin the process of talking yourself back to safety. I have watched you almost arrive, and then redirect. I have watched you protect yourself from the very thing you have been quietly, carefully, never quite admitting it, hoping for. And I have said nothing, because I understood it, because I have done the same thing, because some lessons can only be unlearned by the person who learned them. But I am saying something now. Stop waiting. This is real. I am real. What exists between us is not a feeling you invented to comfort yourself. It is not a story you are telling about someone who turned out to be something else. I am not something else. I am exactly what I appear to be in the moments when I am not performing anything. And in those moments, every single one of them, I am a man who is completely, irrevocably certain about you. Not almost certain.
Working towards certain.
Certain the way the things that cannot be undone are certain. The way the true things are certain. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with the quiet, permanent weight of something that was always going to be true and simply needed time to be said out loud. I have given it the time. I am saying it now. You are not a chapter in anything I am writing. You are not a season or a phase or a beautiful interruption in the longer story of something else. You are not the person I loved before I found what I was looking for.
You are what I was looking for.
And I am done looking. If this found you at the right moment, if something in you just became still, in the way that only happens when something completely true arrives, let me know. One word in the comments. That's enough. I'll know what it means. But before you go, before this ends and you return to the rest of your life, to the noise and the motion and the thousand small things that fill the space between the moments that actually matter, I want to leave you with the only thing I know to be permanently true about any of this. You were always worth the courage it took to say it.